Hello, and welcome back to the Frog Pond Veg Patch. My name is Kelly, Dan is behind the camera, and it is a new year, which means it's time to start growing again. Now, okay, there's snow on the ground, and there's another almost foot of snow coming tomorrow, but that means it's a great time to start gardening inside of milk jugs, and I'm going to be demonstrating that for you today. So I'm going to talk about the sorts of seeds you can grow in milk jugs, as well as how to start them, where to put them, and what to do when you're ready to plant them out in the spring. When you're looking for seeds to start in milk jug gardening, what you want to look for are perennials, especially if they say that they need to be cold stratified or that you want to start them after a period of cold in the fridge. You can also start things like annuals and vegetables that are frost hardy, that can be sown into cold soil, that need any kind of cold period. So things for early spring or later in the fall, you can start those in milk jugs. So for vegetables, that could mean things like chard, cabbages, spinach, peas, anything like that that you would sow right early in the spring. In a wet climate like ours, one thing to keep in mind is that the seeds are going to be open to the elements. So if you tend to get a lot of rain and snow during the winter, it's better to start seeds later on in the season than earlier, because those seeds are going to be sitting in cold, wet soil, and you're raising the chances of them rotting before they can sprout if you start it too soon. So here in New Hampshire, we have very wet winter climate, so I don't start any seeds this way before the end of January, which is where we are right now. For this type of gardening, you can use any container that lets in the elements, like this milk jug does through the top, as well as letting in the light. And this is a milky container, but this still lets in more than enough light for the plants to grow. You can also use things like Ziploc bags or tote containers, whatever you have on hand. For this project, we also need duct tape to seal the container back up, as well as potting soil. I'm not using seed starting mix, I'm using regular potting soil. I've pre-moistened it just a bit. We're also going to be using a drill to put holes in the bottom. You want to put at least 4 holes in the bottom, and then you also want to have some labels to put on the inside and a pencil to write on them. I'm also going to grab a Sharpie so I can write on the tape on the outside. But the tape on the outside, and if you were to label the outside, that's going to wear off before you plant these out. So it's a good thing to have a label on the inside as well. And the only other thing I need are my seeds. I'm also going to gather some seeds from out in the garden, and I'll show you how I do that when we get to that part. So the first thing we need to do is cut open this container and then put the holes inside of it. So I have a utility blade here, and I'm cutting it at the level right where the handle starts. I'm cutting right below that, and I leave the handle part intact. I've seen people who talk about that being too fragile, but this is just going to be sitting on my deck. I'm not going to be moving this around a lot, and I didn't have any problems with this breaking last year. So we're going to start with drilling holes in the bottom first because it's nice and stable right now. This is the soil that I'm using. It just loosely holds together. It's nothing too wet. If it's squeezing out any water, you want to mix in some dry soil with that. You don't want anything that wet. And then we'll fill the bottom of the container up pretty much to the top because I'm using seeds that want to be basically on the surface. So for seeds today, I'm going to use mainly seeds we collected from our garden last year. This is a type of milkweed called Cinderella. And that's what I'm going to be planting in this container. So you want to make sure to have a label that's going to be on the inside. I use these white labels that you can write on with a pencil. They hold up really well. I have some by the garlic right now, and the pencil holds all season long. So I have the label for that. I'm going to put that inside. You can pretty much plant as many seeds as you want in this container, but one thing to keep in mind is the more seeds and the closer you have them packed together, the more of a pain it is to then separate them out in the spring. So I like to just loosely scatter the seeds on the surface, and then I just use more milk jugs if I need to, if I want more plants. These are swamp milkweed. So I'm going to be planting a lot of milkweed today. I also have some echinacea, rudbeckia, and these violet seeds that I found. I don't want anything too close. I found that 2 dozen seeds was more than enough for me to try messing around with in the spring of separating them. And then these ones, I just want to lightly cover these, just barely. So the only thing to do now is to seal up this container, and I'm going to be using duct tape. And then I need to find a Sharpie. We'll find a Sharpie in the garage somewhere. And then we'll label the duct tape so we know what's in here. So I'm going to go inside, find a Sharpie, and we'll label this. Okay, so this milkweed is called Cinderella. So I'll write that on the label here. As long as it holds up when I pick it up, then it's perfectly fine to sit on my deck for the next few months. So we're going to get through the rest of these, and I will come back to you when we go collect seeds from out front to put in the milk jugs. So I have all the seeds planted that I had on hand, and I'm going to go over to the Rose of Sharon on the corner and grab a few seeds from that. So come on with me and we'll go and get those seeds. So I'm cutting off an entire branch at the moment, but it's growing in towards the plant, so it needs pruning anyway. So I'm just getting these seed pods here very carefully because these explode out everywhere. So this is hibiscus, Rose of Sharon. It's a perennial hibiscus here. I'm just going to get whatever seeds I can. They're a little damp because it's been raining, but it'll be fine. Plus it's an experiment. Anytime you collect seeds on your own, it's an experiment to see if they'll grow. Anytime you do anything in the garden, it's an experiment. So don't worry about if it doesn't work out well, you just learn from the next time. Ideally, you'd be putting these together someplace warmer than outside before a snowstorm, but our garage is not really set up for filming just yet. So the duct tape would stick a lot better if I was doing this inside. But I mean, they're holding when I pick them up, and they're not going to get moved until spring, so they should be just fine. All right, so we're going to take these up to the deck, and then I'll show you where we're going to be putting them. You want some place that is open to the elements, and there's nothing above us. You also want some place that's sunny. Behind me is, well, it would be the sun, but that faces south. And you also want someplace where they won't be knocked over. And you can keep an eye on them for moisture. If you're in a drier climate, you want to make sure that you're checking inside the container to make sure that the soil is damp. If it isn't, make sure that you moisten it so the seeds stay moist. But here we should be just fine. If I'm going to start anything else, like any cold tolerant vegetables, I'm definitely going to wait till later in the season to get that started. So these jugs are going to sit here until it starts to get warm and the snow is gone. Once it starts to warm up, I'm going to be opening these lids for a little bit longer time each day, just to get them used to the wind blowing. They'll already be used to the cold temperatures, so they'll be a lot hardier than anything you start indoors, but the wind will still affect them. Once you do that, then you need to separate them out and pot them on. And I still have some from last year's milk jug sowing that I haven't put in the ground yet, so I'll take you and show you what they'll look like. Here I have some goldenrod that I started last spring, and this has only been separated out into these trays, and I'm going to plant them out in the spring. This is a really good and economical way to start perennials. So that does it for milk jug gardening. It's a very easy way to get started before spring is even here. And for me, I've been wanting to get gardening for a while now, and the garden is still covered in snow. So it's really nice to be able to do something that's ready for spring. It's also a great way to build up your stock of perennials, which is really important for us for our front garden. And I can't wait to show you where those are going to be ending up. So thank you so much for joining us here in the Frog Pond Veg Patch today. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you know when we're coming up with new videos. And I'll see you next week. Bye.